May we have the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Am I,
Sorry.
am I mistaken, but was not the other new member not present on it? I've never met him.
No, he wasn't here.
And it's in the minutes that he was.
It is.
It is.
So it is.
Did you? Reverend Hollins.
He was.
It
Was he here?
Yes, he was here.
Last month,
He would have to go to church.
no. He wasn't here last month.
He came to his orientation.
The
Minutes are correct.
new trustee acknowledged and introduced to the board.
Yes.
Not here. I know.
So we need to strike
Strike that.
Okay.
the last part.
I did. And we went to executive session.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're in, I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair, I was going to say, to make the motion with necessary corrections to the minutes.
Okay, that's where we are. Okay, at this time, may we have a motion to accept the minutes? Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes?
Yes.
As correct.
As correct.
Okay, now, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, yes, Wayne?
No, I just wanna, we hadn't gotten to accepting the agenda yet. I wanna add something to the agenda.
Okay, at this time, we will, make a motion to accept the agenda. All those in favor? Agenda, we've never done
I would like to make an amendment to the
that.
agenda.
Okay, what's that, Wayne?
Down at committee reports, I don't see a committee report, item for nominating committee.
Okay, nominating committee is added. You can give your report at the end. Okay, moving
What
on.
item is that?
It's gonna be the
6, yeah. 6A.
6,
D,
6A.
yes, 6, it'll come
A,
after,
B, C,
violence in the workplace.
yeah.
Did someone move to do that? Was there a motion?
I think it's just as amended.
Okay.
Okay, Justin,
Good evening.
good evening.
We will start with page 1, Statement of Income and Expenses. This is for the year ending September 30th, 2017. Let's see. We have income of $4,393,620.97. And on page 2, we are ending with $4,473,117,855, which leaves us in a hole of 79. So let's look at that number for a moment, if we shall. All right, so we had budgeted $4,538,000. Now, for the personnel grant, we did acknowledge the fact that $277,000 was our current number. We had digressed from 324, and we had worked our way into that number. So, to get to that point, we began to do a few things called to create revenue accounts. We increased some of our revenue accounts, projecting from the things we had done. We had done things like the small balance program, which we didn't get kicked off until actually this year, and we also did this copier project. Those two things did not acclimate until actually right now. It's actually October of this year. So the reason our income was down was because of that, and also Tisdale being closed. We almost lost about $21,000 from Tisdale being closed. So with that being said, that's kind of where we're looking on the income side. That's why we're looking at some of the numbers you see. Again, it's not a good number we want to see, but again, there's I believe we have turned the table for this, because I'll speak to that in a moment after I get finished. But I want to take this part by part, if that's okay. I mean, but on the income side, do y'all kind of see the what's and the whys on that. I mean, we had, still working on a number that we had not been truly, we had revenue accounts that did hit where we needed. We had money that didn't acclimate because we had a branch that was closed. And there's just nothing we can really do about a branch that's closed. I mean, you're talking about, again, a substantial amount of money and time that was spent there. So,
What was the source of that 21,000 plus?
well, I used the prior number from the prior year, and, you know, but that number is copier fees, fines, paid at the actual library itself, just the day-to-day operations of that branch. So. All right, so again, I'm gonna go to page 2, expenses. Kind of break this down as best I can. So on page 2, 4,473,175. We had budgeted some of these accounts. Again, when we lost our forecasting numbers and we're looking at going into the next fiscal year, we look at these numbers and we try to guesstimate, based on prior year experiences, where our number's gonna fit. We had 5 categories that just did not hit numbers on expenses. Utilities was $25,000 more than budgeted. Legal and accounting was $15,000 more than budgeted. Cleaning supplies. We had guard services that came in $10,000 more. Problem with that, we had a branch that actually needed a guard, so we had to factor that back in. So we needed a guard at a branch, it's a necessity. So
Which branch was that?
Willie Moore's and Baltimore too. There was an incident with a patron, I believe, with a
Stalking.
yeah, to that level. So these are the items that just kind of that pop up during the year. And also our E-rate money. I had hoped that some of the E-rate money would have come in at a higher level. But in the second year of E-rate, it comes to a tier 2 payment. So you're not getting your full 85%, you're only getting 50%. So we actually finished 65,000 underneath what we had budgeted for expenses. So part of that is not, we didn't completely, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Some of our cabling projects we didn't go through with on this year, and it was due to some libraries just not being ready to be cabled. So we actually came underneath the budget on the expense side. So it's kind of on one side we came under, on the income side we didn't hit our mark. So which left us with that 79,000. Also, the personnel grant. I thought I projected a little more money coming in from that. MLC, when they sent us an email, they said that they had cut us to 277, but at the end of at 9/30, they were going to send us, or in the September month, they were going to take an amount, whatever was left, and distribute it among the libraries that had been cut. It was around $1,500. They didn't tell us an exact number. They just said you were cut this amount, much more, and it's possible you could get more money. So that's where that number was too. So just too many things going wrong in one year. So with that being said, I want to talk about what we had talked about last board meeting. Was seeing this and creating flexibility within our budget. And I believe we have done that with the current budget we're in right now. And I'm also just, again, when you have one line item that can skew your whole outlook by $15,000 or $20,000, it's hard to make it up in another area. I mean, again, I just focus on that guard or another line item, but you just can't take away from one and rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. But that is what we would do. So that's how we kind of end up in the situation where we're looking at. But with the new budget, we've created this flexibility, so when things like that happen, we're not having to stretch further than when we need to. Again, probably was sorry to be so mumbling here, but it's something I did want to focus on, and I'm sure you'll have questions, so I'll take this one report at a time if that's okay, but please.
My mind is stuck on fiscal year ending 9/30.
Yes, sir.
2 days before that, we had a board meeting. And we were told that the budget will be balanced. Everything, the end of the year will be balanced out. But here we're here today, and we're $79,000 short. Refresh my mind on what happened, based on what we were told last month.
I don't remember saying we would have a balanced budget.
Yes, yes, we did. Yes, we did. We did say that.
I don't remember saying. I'm not gonna say I didn't say that, but I said I might have said if some of our funding entities come in, it's possible we could get down to a lower number. I think I said we were at 50,000 at that point. That was the number I said. We were 50,000 in the hole. And I'm still waiting on to post our final September deposits. And I was waiting to see what we were getting in the E-rate money and another possible grant. I don't know if I'm sorry.
So will these red numbers change next month?
Well, we'll start a new fiscal year.
This is our new fiscal year now.
Well, starting 10/1.
So we won't, 'cause I thought you did say something about October was when we paid most of the bills.
Right, yes, ma'am.
One question I want to ask. I said, I'm
So I said,
sorry.
okay, I said, okay.
I want, if we are operating in the red, and of this day we are, where did you transfer the money to pay the $1,900 monthly rent for the temporary office space? And kind of brief us on, I know you all moved, and there had to be a lot of movement, a lot of expense there, because you had to do connection between that office and this office, and you had to move and and so forth and so on. Can you tell me where that money comes from?
Sure.
And how this additional expense will impact the deficit that we already have?
Sure. Okay, so question one. When we finish the fiscal year end, the balance that's remaining at the end of the fiscal year, whether you're in a deficit or you finish with, with I guess profit, would be the term in the corporate world, but it's unrestricted net assets, and that rolls into your general fund balance. So throughout the operation of the library, there's been good years and bad years. And so when there was a good year, you finished with $100,000 of surplus or profit, it rolls into the next year's operating balance. And throughout, a time frame, it will accumulate. Again, we had projected for next year's budget that we would finish 38,000. That's just a projection. If next year comes the way we hope it will, that 40,000 will roll into the general fund, and it will take away from the 79. That's kind of how that works. That's that whole. That's the general fund, so to speak. It's not designated for. Budget's a guide we try to use. And then for the building itself, we had created the budget for 10/1 to 9/30/18 with that building encompassed into it. So we'd already escrowed that amount out. Yes, ma'am.
We, if you recall, we were able to get our ebook services a $10,000 savings, and we also saved another, thanks to Meow, saved with another database that she was able to get for us, and that's how we paid for the savings.
Well, and again, what we looked at last month too was the hourly change, and some of the things Ms. Burnett brought up is what some savings as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, good question. Okay, in your process, as it relates to, going through the budget, where did you see where there was gonna be a shortfall of this amount?
Well, it probably, I'd have to go back and look at some of the notes, but again, with the exception of, I'll have to go back and check my notes on that, but again, when it comes to seeing a shortfall, and if it's at a level, you're almost looking at having to eliminate a position or let people go. That's what you would do in a normal situation such as that. So, but I will research that and let you know.
Okay, because it would be great for us.
Well, and what I would like to do, I'm gonna start with October 1st. Is I'm gonna not to confuse, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a percentage and I'm gonna weight this budget. So I'm not telling you that we've already prepaid bills. I'm gonna take a percentage of what we paid in October, weight that, and you'll have a weighted budget that will trend. So I'm not having to come up here and say that we've already prepaid and we're gonna see numbers going, got confusing.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's worth it to say that we were pretty close to the target in spending. We didn't spend too much. What happened was we had a library that last year served almost 70,000 people that was closed for 6 months, and that's a pretty big deal. We also had extraordinarily large legal costs. There were several categories, and it's very hard. If somebody sues you, you really can't say, well, you can't pay the legal bill. You've got to do what you ever have to do.
Well, to answer part of your question, Mr. Jones, is when we had the first of October, before this budget was even in effect, we'd gone to the Board of Supervisors and asked for, I believe it was $35,000. We actually did a mock budget with that, with the board approving that, and we went to them and they denied it because we were going to use it from the unallocated funds and then transition into some of the items we had looked at with Ms. Burnett, but they denied that. So that was kind of set some of the precedent for what I was going to see coming. But again, we had some of the other revenue streams that I thought were going to make it. But again, let me pigeon table that so I can find out exactly kind of where.
Okay. The other question is, I know that at audit time, there was a discussion about updates on how we want to ensure that everything would stay, in step with
Oh, yeah, right.
funding and so on. And so that was the question too, so the correlation between those two.
Yeah, well, I believe everything will transition fine. Again, the audit will be coming up in November. And again, I don't foresee any problem with that other than just getting my assistant and I to the new office and getting everything set up.
Okay.
But that should be okay.
All right. Okay, because I know you mentioned about, in terms of revenues being generated through whatever sources they are, whatever streams that we saw. What you all saw, I should say, and what we reviewed.
Correct.
Will we, there's an accounting in terms of, which bills are paid or what have you.
Sure.
And that's the reason one sees that, the accounting piece compared to where we saw that we were, or that there was a shortfall.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Just for
Yes, ma'am.
information purposes, have you compiled the total expense for transitioning from here? Could you share?
Well, right now, the current bill, and I'll have to ask Ms. Patty with this, what I've seen come across my desk was the moving expense, which I believe she held to $500, which is what she had told y'all. That was the invoice I've seen for that. Cabling, I believe, is finishing up on that. You can elaborate on that.
I think that's kind of negligible because there was
Right.
so much cabling already there.
Right, so I think it's, but the moving expense was done very frugally. Some of that furniture was so big you couldn't go with, so
You
we.
have to contrast that also with the fact that if we had stayed here in the mold-filled offices, we would have had workers' comp complaints in the thousands of dollars. So we can't stay in mold-filled offices. You may not like what it costs to move somewhere, but we had to go somewhere, and we got an excellent deal. This building owner gave us these 2 suites that normally would have been $4,000, but each, and he gave them, both of them for $1,900, which was just an amazing help, because we really didn't have any place else to go.
Well, I don't think that was the big, from my perspective, that's not the issue of mold versus whatever. We had to, the board approved of it. I just want to know the cost.
Well, so far, it's been $500 for the movers. I don't know what the cabling is, but I don't think it's gonna be real high. We're moving all our own stuff, so.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones mentioned the audit. Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
The deficiencies are the items that the auditor notated in their report.
Yes, sir.
Were we ever given a report on the update of where we are correcting them?
I believe the second or third meeting, we had taken care of all that. I noted, I'd reported on where we were and the corrections that were made. I know, for instance, the one you actually asked about last board meeting was a check signing. It was for 2 separate accounts. And
Right.
I'd gotten, I think it was the third or fourth, maybe the second meeting after that, that had ordered a checkbook, and this, Director First signs every check now with 2 signatures and that kind of nature. But I know that was the one that stuck out most.
Okay, do you have a copy of that?
I'll have to find it.
If you do, just
Yeah.
forward it to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I will say, there is another outlet we are visiting, and I think we can save $50,000. We have budgeted salary people in our current budget, but some of those aren't utilized right now, and I'm looking at doing some other, I have an idea to get, to help us save money, so I'll elaborate more on that next month, for time's sake. But that's all for the statement of income and expenses, and if anybody wants to meet with me anytime, I know I don't want to rush here, but
Okay.
that's the statement of income and expenses.
The only concern I have
Yes,
is,
ma'am.
with the $79,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that impacted at all by the moves?
Oh, no, ma'am. No, the first actual bill itself came in October.
Okay, so it's not reflected?
No, ma'am.
But we will see it for next year?
Yes, ma'am, but with the changes that occurred at 10/1 with the, with the salaries and payroll and the time change, you're gonna already see that effect of the positive cash flow. So it won't be detrimental, so to speak.
We got a millage increase from the city of Jackson,
That what?
which is rather substantial. And that's really gonna help us tremendously with the budget. So I was very encouraged with that. And we hadn't gotten more than 2,000 or 3,000 from the Board of Supervisors for 10 years. And they gave us 10,000 this year. So, we had a $100,000 deficit. And when you count the 40,000 that was under, that pretty much got wiped out by the millage increase. So I think it's gonna be a pretty good year. And it really helped that the mayor was able to believe in the library system and raise taxes to make sure our millage got raised.
How much did you say Hinds County funds?
Well, they give us about 10,000. That's above their normal budget. Because we lost from the Library Commission $100,000. That's in direct salary money. The Mississippi Library Commission took a $1.1 million hit in their budget, and they passed $100,000 on to us, which was a devastating blow. But the mayor's millage increase, I think it's $163,000, plus the $10,000 that we got from the Board of Supervisors, which is the most they've given us extra in years. So I think we're gonna come out okay. And I will tell you that Sharman Smith is taking over the Library Commission, who's a very savvy political person, and I think that she will do better with the budget process this year. She was the library commissioner, and we never had these kind of problems when she was library commissioner. So, to tell you, the library directors are very happy about her coming back. She's coming out of retirement to help.
That's the statement of income and expenses, and let's just go on to page 3, which is our balance sheet. Again, standard balance sheet is at 930. Again, any questions on that? Again, just a snapshot of where we are at the end of the year.
Good evening, the library will be closing on 15 minutes, computer labs is now closed. Please have your mind to collection and bring us to the collection desk or check out as soon as possible. If you have mine,
I'm
please
gonna tell
pay.
them not to. And the alarm goes.
Moving to page 4, 128, that's directly going back to the statement of income and expenses. It ties back to 400 again. And as usual, we'll go to the checklist with total, which is your kind of your cheat sheet for all the checks we've cut since the last board meeting until the report went out. And that goes on to page 6, I'm sorry. And from 7 to bill. Some of these are kind of backwards on top, so again, from 7 to 16 is just the guts of what we call the checks, so where they're posted and why. With maybe a brief description. That ties back with our checklist total.